This is how I remember Helen Martins, the Magi and Owl House. Their tethers tug like flame at my heartstrings, and I wonder about her wounds, her coy magical healing. Did she ever prepare a delicious, warm cake for her friend, that social worker that Fugard spoke so highly of? What stalked her for so long? A lifetime, and then she had to go, and die still so young, fighting fit. Oh, suicide is a forlorn, lonely way to go. Don't do it, I would have said, and she would have looked at me. Our eyes, I imagined, would have connected the way the white sunlight connects with the angles and corners of shadows of furniture, against the wall, against the panes, against panels and cupboards, on summertime afternoons, and then I would have understood her motives, the intention behind it all, the mystery, the spell that its suicide had cast over her, her life's work. And as I wander through her house, I can feel her presence. I don't think her unstable. She doesn't haunt me, my waking thoughts, as much as her body of magnificent work, her art does, if I can call it that. Writers write, poets lose themselves in translation, philosophers, who pose as academics, during the day intellectuals debate over wine and sushi, until the early hours of the morning. When did she know her jig was up, that her time had come to bid this cruel world adieu, in the worst possible way? Who found her with her insides eaten away? I read Fugard's The Road to Mecca. I was jealous. Jealousy and cowardice are in the sticky blood of every writer, and it simply does not boil away to faint, hot zone of grieving nothingness, fumbling bits and pieces, like crushed autumn leaves dead, in the center of the flushed palm of your hand. Helen's Mecca cast its own spell on me. To me it felt magical. A love spell launched into the language of the pathways of a warring fraction of nerves, anxious to please like a child, with the limbs, eyes soft, sweet-smelling tufts of hair, and a smile of a doll's features, and yet, a spell that was blank up front, to take comfort in that blankness, as if it was purified, like a chalice of communion wine, and it was also a spell, that spelled be faithful, as a servant of God, a man of the cloth. He, Fugard, seemed to craft the impossible in a way that did justice to Helen, the insecure little, belittled bird afraid of the outside world. Helen, the outsider, in a way I knew I could never, because I did not get the hook, the bait, but fishing for information, our keen sense, our powers of observation of human behavior is what writers and poets know best as we drink our coffee, brew pots of tea, grow a hunched back bend over our ancient computer. How did she, Helen, who was not so insecure after all, build that wall around her? How did she approach each subject, each project, as an assignment? Did she miss the feeling of the warmth in her bedroom of another human being? The company of her dead husband, their daily rituals filled with breakfasts, hot buttered toasts, meals that came out of cans, processed foods that could easily be heated up and eaten with bread like pillards or sardines. They would probably have imbibed hot drinks during the day, warm milk at bedtime, lukewarm tea when it was called for, the bitter taste of coffee, with grounds at the bottom of the cup, in the morning. I think she had an inkling she would live on even in death, and in her gift that she left to the world was the method in her madness. Did these apparitions that came to life see her as a mystic? A prophetess bound for crucifixion and resurrection, with her own shroud of Turin? God forbid. Did they come to life under her splayed fingertips, come to her from above heaven sent, as natural as night and day? Were they angelic? Utterances whispered in her ear while she slumbered, as she turned in her sleep, twisting the sheets between her legs, until finally she dreamed until daybreak. Or were they of hallucinations, induced by the isolated landscape, the barren countryside which surrounded her, the wilderness of her antisocial behavior of her own making, induced by the mind of a woman, slowly going mad, losing common sense, lacking that quintessential backbone of what made the English, the liberal-minded, so organized in their group, or sporting activities like tennis, for example, cricket or hockey, activities that required teams and cliques, so formal even in their games, proud of their progeny, that followed in their footsteps, productive in the world, a world of their own making, that was to a certain extent selfish, self-absorbed, not welcoming and friendly to people they considered to be not a fit partner in their climate. So genteel were they, and conservative in their broad outlook on life. When I read of how people take their lives into their own hands, I wonder what will happen, if there will ever be any substantial record of proof of their life here on earth. In the end, does it really matter to them? I question. Yes, perhaps I judge their actions harshly and too quickly, but to me, it does matter because I was brought up that way. To believe that there is something holy and godlike about your spirit, your soul, your physical and emotional body, and to take what does not belong wholeheartedly to you, is stealing, and there is nothing pretty about being caught after the act. If only, I imagine people who stumble across, infiltrate the place where the deceased lays, the body arranged in death, find the fragile creature, as if taking a nap, resting face composed, still nothing amiss except the silence in the room, where the unfortunate act of defiance, of quiet desperation had taken place, without anyone's knowledge. If only I had come sooner, not said this, said that in a moment, when all my thoughts were focused perfectly, perhaps if I had acted swiftly, but depression is both mean-spirited and long-suffering, and there is no escape from that if it is passed down from generation to generation, inherent in the highly feminine woman, prone to emotional outbursts, hysterics, tantrums, panic attacks, melancholy mania, self-medication with painkillers and potions brewed with herbs, and the effeminate man. Most people live in altered states of minds when something traumatic has happened to them. Most people think that therapy can help them with this. Sitting down face to face with someone who has studied the maladies of the mind for years and years, they bear the deepest, darkest secrets of their soul, and then leave, feeling relieved, as if they have just done something noble. They think they will find the answers their soul is seeking, once a week, ongoing, sometimes for several years, or for their natural life. They find someone who they feel is suitable, someone motherly, fatherly, or someone young who reminds them of a loved one, someone they lost, or who even reminds them of their own children, or a substitute for the absent parent from their childhood and adolescence and young adult life. But I was really writing this about Helen Martins, and for her, in defense of her and of the life she lived. Some people just can't help making waves, and the more flawed they are, the more they can't stop making waves. Perhaps she found the answers she was looking for, the elegant solutions she craved, like scientists or mathematicians craved, in their own work, in her art, her sculptures, her friendship. I wanted to make sense of her thinking. What was it inside her head that was making her tick insatiably behind her eyes, that was making her see? What exactly was her fruitful, the blooming flowers of her subconscious, telling her to do, willing her to do consciously, conscientiously, consistently, efficiently, and at a time unbeknownst to the world at large while she was still alive? In death she has survived it all that she couldn't in life, and yet she is still remembered as a woman made of skin and bone. A bone woman, shapeless, caught in a thoroughfare like kittens, to be drowned in a bag. Her features like a sandscape, opening and shutting, through which seawater spills. Martyrs are made of this.